Okay, Sam, can you put up your slide, share screen and put up your slide? Thanks.
Oh, it says it's still disabled.
Oh, shouldn't be?
Yeah, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, let me check that.
Hmm.
Oh.
Oh, you can see the participant number. It's exciting.
Oh, it's really jumping up. That's great. So Sam, should I give it another minute and then get going, do you think?
Yeah, because every time I press it, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, I'm working on it now.
For those who are joining, we're just working out some behind the scenes technical stuff.
No, that's not that.
Hi, everyone. While we're just working this out, if you want to say hello in the chat, we would love to know who it is joined us so far.
Hello to the auto emission. I'll have you here. We were just talking about the fact that this is I think this is a record breaker for us in terms of AFP webinars. We're totally sold out. Sold out's not the right word. We're at max capacity, which is a good place to be.
Right. We're thrilled.
Hello, Crohn's and Colitis Canada. Ottawa Valley Wild Bird Care Center. Cool. I can't tell you how much time I'm spending looking at birds these days, but that's a whole other.
Sam, give it a try now.
It still indicates disabled. Do you want me to go on and come back on, maybe, Barbara?
I think you're on mute, Barb.
Yeah, you should be log out and log in again, Sam.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, folks, just bear with us for a couple more minutes. Ottawa Hospital Foundation, Interval House, lovely, NAC. Oh my gosh, this is a great group. Heart and Stroke. Big Brothers, Big Ottawa, very nice. Hi Sam, you're back.
Yes, and unfortunately, it still indicated host disabled attendee screen sharing.
So how should we, Ruby or Barb, how would you like to move forward? Sam, do you think, is it worth kind of talking through the slides if we're unable to show them for some reason? Or Ruby, do you have another troubleshooting tech suggestion?
Well, honestly, I mean, the participants were at 43, and I think that people are still going to be logging on. So if Barb, I mean, if you're still working away there, like if there's another option, if you want to give that a shot.
Yep, I'm looking at it
honestly,
now.
Waiting another 2-3 minutes just so people can log on, that would be fine. And then if not, we'll have to maybe just talk through the slides.
Okay, I'll continue to work on it.
I wonder if Sam logged in as host instead, if Sam took over as host, if that would work.
That's a good question, Lynn.
Yeah.
I am not a Zoom #1 expert, but I feel like we might have done that before sometime.
Sam, do you want to do that?
Sure. Just
In
one.
on my account?
So we have a comment from Sabrina. Thank you in the chat. Sam's not an attendee; she's a presenter, so maybe we're not looking at the right place for the screen sharing.
Okay.
Thank you all on the chat for your helpful suggestions.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know where else to look. I'm logged on to the like the link.
Oh, here we go. Found it. Try it again, Sam.
Oh, I'm so excited. Here we go, everyone.
Oh,
There we
something
go.
happened.
Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry.
Yay!
You.
Yay!
We love you, Barbara.
Start the session. So thank you, Barb, for helping to troubleshoot that. And I just want to welcome everyone to today's session. So my name is Teresa Marcus. I'm chair of the Association of Fundraising Professionals Ottawa chapter. And it's just a real pleasure to see the excitement that folks have in joining us this morning with Sam Laprade to discuss combining analytics and stewardship and engaging donors. So we know this is a tough time. And on behalf of AFP Ottawa, we want to continue to offer just really meaningful learning opportunities for our members and for folks who are working in the sector here in Ottawa. So thank you for joining. This is a sell-out session, which is wonderful. Really delighted to have Sam Laprade, communications and fundraising strategist extraordinaire, a great friend of AFP Ottawa and of so many of us in the sector here in Ottawa and nationally and internationally, host of An Hour to Give on 1310 News Radio, and comedian, I should add as well. So thank you, Sam, for joining us today. Really excited for the session. And I also want to thank Harvey McKinnon and Associates. Harvey McKinnon has been a great sponsor of AFP Ottawa's learning and professional development opportunities in normal times and in not normal times. So thank you to Liz for representing HMA and for supporting the work that we're able to bring forward to support our members in the chapter. So before turning it over to Sam, I'll ask Lynn to say a few words. I will also, as a little piece of housekeeping, we're going to save about 20 minutes at the end for questions. If you do have questions that you'd like Sam to address, please put them in the Q&A little button at the bottom, as opposed to the chat session, because they'll probably just get buried in the chat, but continue to chat kind of throughout, please do. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Lynn to say a few words and then pass the torch on to Sam. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Teresa. This is Lynn from Harvey McKinnon Associates. We are always thrilled to be supporting the amazing work of AFP Ottawa, and this education series has just, excuse me, been brilliant. I'm particularly excited to be helping sponsor this morning's session because Sam is such a good friend and a good friend to HMA as well. We've worked together on, Sam, I don't know how many of our clients' programs over the years, and the Griffin audits and Sam's presentations do so much to help us run those successful programs. So thank you, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say this morning.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. We're going to go fishing today. We're going to fish in our own pond. Really, this is an opportunity, as Teresa indicated, to combine analytics and stewardship to engage more donors. So I think we know who I am, so that's who I am. Basically, been in this sector for a long, long time. So basically, we're going to talk about the why, why we're sort of combining these two things, really important, especially during this time. And I promise not to say that 152 times during this presentation, but really key. And then of course, what are we managing when we talk about data and stewardship? I don't think there's been a time where it's been more important. And of course, that storytelling piece as well. We're going to talk about the fact that every database has donors who want to do a number of things. They want to give more, which is really good news. They want to be a monthly donor. They may not even know and understand how important monthly donors are to your organization. And we're going to really get into that as well, that they want to give a major gift. And, you know, a reminder, a major gift is whatever a donor thinks a major gift is. So if a donor thinks $1,000 is a major gift, maybe that's a sacrificial gift for them, then that's great. So we want to work with donors in that way. And we have many donors who want to leave a legacy. If there's one thing I've learned from Lynn and the HMA team, is that certainly during this time, we've seen an increase of people wanting to make their wills and get those gifts in there for charity. So it's really, really exciting from that perspective. Donors speak to us through the data. And this is you know, something when I started doing this about 12 years ago, it really became clear to me that this was going to be an important part of how I was going to move my career forward, and sharing this not only with you today, but with literally thousands of people in the past. We've got really great response to this because donors really do speak to us through the data, and we want to know what your donors are saying. So they're saying a number of different things. They're saying something when they only give you one gift. And we know it's no surprise to us as fundraisers. We don't really sort of talk about this publicly, but if somebody was to give us a gift of $25, really we spend that money in the next 2 or 3 years trying to get them to give a second gift. So when they only give us one gift, there's a number of reasons. Sometimes it's because they participated in an event. Sometimes it's because they didn't feel like they were thanked properly, or they didn't feel a connection to the organization. Maybe the receipt took 2 months to get to them. There's lots of reasons why they may not feel like you've given them the accountability for the dollars that they've given. They certainly say a lot when they become monthly donors. And, you know, Harvey McKinnon, of course, is the grandfather. He would kill me if he heard me say that, but the grandfather of monthly giving in terms of really making this a stable way to raise money. So they say a lot when they become a monthly donor, and we cannot treat these donors like ATM machines. We really need to steward those donors. As we know, donors, female donors typically give for 7 years. So when someone calls up with a $10 monthly giving program, really you need to look at that, you know, as a $1,000 donor, as well as men typically give for about 9 years. So that's 2 or 3 credit cards in there. There's a lot of opportunities to steward these donors, but they say a lot to you when they are monthly donors. They also say a lot to you when they have given for a long period of time. That 10 years of giving is really an indicator that they are the most loyal donors. So the data can pull this for you. You can really see how important these metrics are when you get in there and you see who those donors are that are participating. And of course, when they only attend special events. And, you know, lovingly, people that attend special events tend to be people that like special events. They typically maybe not involved in the true philanthropic side. I tell this story a lot. I was working with a woman. I also help people place their money. And I was working with a high net donor who had attended every gala you could possibly think of, but never really gave a philanthropic gift. So a lot of donors don't really understand that piece. They think by attending lots of galas, etc., or runs or walks, that those are truly philanthropic gifts, and they're lovely and we need them. But we can see now how vulnerable special events are. So really key to really pull those people out of any data that you're measuring. You can measure them separately to see how they behave against your file, which you'll see a really big difference. And of course, legacy giving, when someone has indicated that they're going to leave a legacy gift for you, that is really a sign of how much you mean to them and that you really are part of their DNA, if you will. It's a really important piece. A lot of times legacy donors will feel like they've maybe shared that information with the organization, and then, you know, sort of the plan giving officer or the organization sort of says, okay, well, they're dealt with, and they don't really steward them. And I really caution you against that. This is an opportunity to really connect with them. The other piece is so many people don't tell us that we are in their wills. So this is a great opportunity to really connect with donors and ensure that when, you know, maybe they've left that gift, we want to make sure we're stewarding all our donors so they don't remove us from the will, which I put my hand up, I've done that. I've removed organizations that I didn't feel were aligned with me any longer. So you can't manage what you can't measure. So this is a really good opportunity to look at all the efforts you're making, not only now, there will be, unfortunately, sort of a new way. It will be pre-COVID and post-COVID or in the middle of COVID way that we look at things, but it's really important that we do those measurements. So we're going to walk through this piece. This is executive summary of giving, and you can do this for your organization, and I really encourage you to do it. A couple that we're going to walk through that are more important than ever. You can see that this is a 10-year view of the data, and I encourage you to do that. You can see the total revenue and how much it had increased for this particular organization in this sample. You can see the average gift as well. And you can see that's a really important point to always ensure you know what your average gift is. It helps with everything from your matrix on your DM, but it's a really important piece. We're going to talk longer about long-term donor value, but you can see here $353 is that long-term donor value. So for every donor that you acquire, when you look at the data, and this is another great reason to be doing data analytics, you can see what the number is there. The other piece that I always, as soon as I get any report, any Griffin report back for a client, my eye always goes to how many donors are on file and how many are active. This would be considered an excellent result in terms of active. Many that we're seeing now is 15% active, 20% active. So anything in this range, and of course higher, would be considered really healthy. And you're always looking, of course, at renewing donors. So there's 24,000 numbered of renewed donors as well. And then the number of new donors. So 8,100 donors are new. So a really important piece there to always be acquiring those new donors. Okay, I've got someone knocking at my door. I couldn't be happier. So we have second gift conversion. How many first-time donors give a second gift? If anyone's ever heard me talk before, this is a really important metric, and second gift conversion is one that is really key for us in terms of ensuring how our efforts are being felt long-term. When donors don't give that second gift, it really becomes really challenging, and so many donors are only unfortunately giving one gift. We're seeing, nationwide and literally across the country, across the world, that about 40% of donors are giving a second gift, and many are lower. So really key to keep your eye on that as well. So here's one of the metrics that we use, and once again, you can do this for your own organization. Your second gift conversion history. This is a percentage of donors who gave a second gift. So you can see here, once again, the trending, and we always suggest you do try to do 10 years. You can see the revenue here as well to find out sort of where you're landing. The year before this, we don't ever want you to get concerned, because the year before, they wouldn't have had the next year to give. So if we were to run this data, we would probably see it, maybe at 50% or 47% or something. So this 6 isn't indicative of that year. We always want to see 2020 run as well. You can see the revenue there is 71,000. And you can see, once again, acquired this period and the number that gave a second gift, but more important to sort of look in these numbers here, and you can see 54%, which would be considered high right now. I love this because you're seeing when donors gave a second gift. So you're seeing always your first year will be your baseline year. That's everybody that's been brought in. And then of course, 2011, in this, you acquired 13,000 in this particular sample, 13,943 donors. But you can see here that 69 of them gave their second gift almost 10 years later. So it's really interesting to see when people are giving that second gift. And I always like to treat these donors like brand new donors, like welcome them into the family. The number of donors who continue to give, this is a really important piece. This is new donor acquisition. So you can see here once again, in the baseline year, still 2,757 donors are giving here. So it's really key to sort of show these metrics as well. I know we have a lot of sort of CEOs and executive directors with us today, but if you're a director of development or maybe a coordinator, these are great metrics to show leadership, to show them a lot of the stewardship techniques we're going to show you today as well. So what to think about, you know, what can we actually do? So make sure you find out what your second gift conversion is, which is really important, as well as what your current stewardship practices are. That would be a really important piece in terms of what it looks like for you in terms of your stewardship practices. And then when you look at sort of that as a whole, you might see some holes that we can actually fill today with some ideas that we have for you. And strategizing on ways to increase your second gift conversion is a really important piece. Sorry, I'm just responding to someone that's knocking at my door. I apologize. So strategize on ways that you can increase your second gift conversion, which is important. So that will be a piece that we look at too. And measuring this key metric quarterly. So really having an opportunity to look at that number quarterly and have an opportunity to ensure you share that with your team. And I can't say that enough. So many people will run the metrics and then not share it with their team. So that's, you know, really crucial that we do that. So how to increase that second gift conversion? So that welcome package, and it doesn't, once again, have to be anything that, you know, this isn't a 12-page super glossy welcome package. This can be something very simple. It can be a one-pager. It can be in the thank you. It can be something like that. That welcome call. People that have worked with me before know that this is such an important piece of the work that that we do. That welcome call and welcoming donors to our family is important. Gratitude reports, newsletter, that accountability as well, sharing that back with the donor. Those handwritten notes on the bottom of those receipts are really important. And for those that have heard me tell this story before, I one time took we had 2,500 monthly donors. I took all of those home in batches of 500, and we were a faith-based organization. So I was writing on there, you know, thank you, Teresa, God bless you, Sam. And I knew I had to stop one night when I wrote, thank you, Teresa, God help you, Sam. So, you know, you got to watch what you're writing. But those are important little notes to be writing. People always love those little handwritten notes. There's so often now we're not seeing anything handwritten. And of course, that quick tax receipt is a really important piece of this puzzle as well. Getting that tax receipt out to donors quickly. They know you've received the gift, so important. And I can't speak enough about the personalized thank you letter, which is appeal specific. Really an opportunity to if someone has given because you told a story of Peter and his son, when the thank you letter goes back to them, referring back to that appeal is such an important piece. And then, of course, those in memorial and tribute gifts and special event donors. I always like to share this because this has been lessons learned from many, many organizations, is that these are very hard to make into philanthropic gifts, if you will. Someone that gives that memorial gift, because let's say when my father passed away, for instance, they're giving because they believe in what we were asking them to give, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be donors. So sometimes investing a lot into them can be very challenging. And of course, attrition, we don't like to think about it, but it does obviously happen. When we think about donors now, especially, we don't want to have our heads in the sand. We want to make sure that we are aware of what's happening in terms of attrition. Many people don't want to look there, but the reality is worldwide, donor attrition is the biggest challenge facing nonprofits. We are losing donors, and finding them and finding new donors to replace them is becoming increasingly hard, but it's not impossible. It can be done. So we want to look at the stopped giving. So when we look at donor attrition, we looked at the number of donors that are basically stopped giving, and in this case, 8,900. We can see here, we love breaking it down this way, and I really suggest you do the same thing. So we break it down by gave us one gift, because we talked about second gift conversion, very hard to do, gave us 2+ gifts. So this is where you can really start to see how data analytics can help save you money when you're doing your appeals. So you, for instance, if you had a small budget to be able to do a special COVID appeal, for instance, you would probably want to focus on this group, this 2/3 of this group. You can see here in this particular donor attrition sample is that we had negative 3,301 donors, sorry, 3,300 donors in the negative. So meaning that we, meaning that we acquired less donors than what we had lost. So really important to keep our eye on this. And there's very few I run now, just so you know, if you run this for yourself, there's very few I run right now that are not in the negative. And that's been the trend for a couple of years. When Lynn and I work on a file and we see that it's in the plus side, we're like high-fiving each other, because it is pretty rare to see that, but really, really important number to definitely monitor for sure. And if we go back to 2011, and wouldn't some of us love to do that? If we head back to that year, we can think about a couple of different things, and that's where we sort of think about that long-term donor value. So if we pretend we're all on the call today, and let's pretend we're a big giant board of 100 people, and if we were making a decision, and let's say, you know, Lynn came to us and said, you know, she was our director, and she said, we want to invest $50,000 into an acquisition campaign. You know, probably 75% of us would gasp and say, that's a lot of money. You know, I can't believe you would want to do that kind of investment. But if we look forward and we can think predictively in terms of the modeling, if we knew that 13,943 of those donors would be acquired in that time, and not only would the average gift be $64, but we would know that the pool, this pool here, 13,943, if that pool was in the end, 10 years later, 4,773 donors were still giving to us to a number of $7 million. Would you make that $50,000 investment? And that's what long-term donor value does. So it's a really important piece to think about in terms of, especially now, I promise not to say it a million times, but especially in this climate we're in now, looking at your long-term donor value is absolutely essential. So we know that it not only tells us what that donor is worth, even though the donor is at this point $64, it may feel like you might have just paid for your campaign. You know, these numbers are high. You may just make $50,000 off of it, but it's the point of acquiring new donors, which is the key piece, and each of those donors. And we know that these 4,773 donors are more apt to be plan giving donors as well. Plan giving officers, this one is for you. And as many of you know, I was a plan giving officer for many years, and I was always looking for ways to connect with them. And when I started to measure consecutive years of giving, and the fact that loyal donors are the most important that we have, like really, really key. We need to make sure we're not taking them for granted, and we're engaging with them. So often, like I said earlier, they sort of get put off to the side and maybe not given the full due that they deserve. So what I do when I look at these reports is I take this particular metric, donors who've given consecutively for 10 years, and I tend to go 5 years over. So I sort of look at this group and I add up all of these donors and I start to prospect with them. So usually I start here and I would work my way this way. So I might send a letter to this group and see what comes back. Maybe it's got a survey in it. Maybe it's got an appointment in it that we're going to be calling within the next 2 weeks. Maybe it's got something in it. Maybe it's an article. Maybe it's something like that that really will entice the donor for when we make that call. And then I work my way through all of these prospects. Now, you might run this and you might have 51 donors here and 75 here. It doesn't matter. The same principle applies. Don't let these numbers fog you and think you're not doing a good job. Your numbers are your numbers, and work with them. They're really, really important to work with your data. So whatever your numbers are, work backwards and try and get that particular group engaged. These are the first pyramids, but it certainly feels to many fundraisers that these were the first pyramids. We look at our donor pyramid with both, some people love it and some people don't engage with it. We love it at Griffin because it gives us a very quick view of where your donors sit. So we're going to transition now. We were looking at a 10-year window. We're transitioning now to a 3-year window. So in our minds at Griffin, we work with 3 years as being active donors. So we broke it down here, and we've got another way to look at it in the slide following. But this is 0 to 12 months. This is dollar amounts, and this is cumulative over 36 months. So your top donors that have given most recently are that top 2%, 2.9, 2.9 here as well, and 2.9 here, and 2.5. So you can see where you want to spend the majority of your energy. You can see here, these donors are about to sort of fall off. So these donors potentially, may stop giving. So you want to engage with them. And by breaking it down this way, it's a really quick, easy way for you to be able to find out where you want to spend the most energy. Not that this 70% isn't important, but if you only have so many resources, you may want to focus on the top 10% or the top 30%. And you can break this any way you want. We find this to be a great way to break it down. And then, of course, 25 to 36 months. I often think about these pyramids, and forgive the analogy, but as sort of, you're married to these guys are starting to think about seeing other people, and these guys are seeing other people. So you want to sort of think about it from that perspective as well. So this is another view of what we just looked at. And of course, this is donors in the last 36 months. So when people ask me what my strategy was, certainly when I worked at the mission and every organization after that, I've worked for 2 other organizations. And of course, I'm a full-time consultant now. This was exactly what I did. I would contact these donors here. They are the most likely to drop off and then not even be counted in this at all. So you want to make sure you get to them very quickly. There's 153 in the sample. They are in your top 2%, and they are 25 to 36 months. You can see the revenue. You can see the average gift. So these are donors you want to definitely pay attention to. And then I go over here. Here's my number 2. And I have 611 donors here. This is the revenue. You can see the average gift is quite different from this average gift. So you want to make sure, this is what's great about this. This is a roadmap. This is like the easiest way to fundraise ever because it's super simple. It's all laid out for you. And then I zip up here and I go to 13 to 24 months. And I go to 179 donors here, 400,000 just about in here in revenue. The average gift, once again, $440. Wouldn't we all love an average gift like that? And then you can see here, we zip over here to number 4, 715 donors here, and $92 is the average gift. Once again, we've got 745 donors in our top 2%. and the average, or the sort of the total revenue there is just about $3 million. And you can see the average gift is 207, but you see you've got a lot of them. And then of course, number 5, 2980, your top 8%. And you can see here their average gift is 72. Now, it doesn't mean you don't connect with these, but excuse me, in terms of resources and time, this is where we would spend the majority of our time. We can talk a lot about those different Miss You campaigns that you can do as well. One area that I love looking at is recency, frequency, and monetary. Many people refer to this as RFM. And if we look at the last 3 years in the file that we just looked at, the sample, you can see here in the last 36 months, in this particular case, they're dealing with 53,000 donors in that time frame. We love seeing this. We love seeing this bar nice and tall. This is the last 12 months, so we know donors are giving to us quite quickly right now, which is great. And then we know that we do have people that are lapsing. They're considered active, but they're ready to fall off, like we talked about. 13 to 24 months, we've got 17% in here and 14% here. So recency by percentage, very important. And then of course, frequency. And this is where, you know, it's really key that you look into the frequency, because going back to what we said at the very beginning, there are donors in your file that want to become monthly donors. So let's find out who they are. So you can see 37% have given that one gift. In this case, 16% have given 2 gifts. This would be a great group to reach out to and ask about monthly giving. This group here, 3+ gift, you would take this and you would weed out, sorry, my apologies. You would weed out anybody that was a monthly donor in this file. If they weren't a monthly donor and they were giving 3+ times, you definitely know what to do. You're going to reach out to them and ask them to be a monthly donor. And monetary by percent, you can see here, my heavens to Betsy, monetary percent is 49% is $0 to $100, 40% in this window, and 10% here. We obviously would love this window, this one, to be higher. But in this particular case, you can see why the average gift, if we remember back to our executive summary, was $57. So it's really key to remember that as well. And so what are you going to do? You're going to look at your RFM. How many loyal donors do you have in your database would be a great next step. How many donors are you reactivating and renewing and acquiring? And of course, measure these metrics quarterly. So what do we say to donors? I love this because I think I started about 12, 13 years ago. I had done a session called, Does Your Phone Weigh 500 Pounds? And that session, I still give that session after all these years. And it really was a session that resonated with a lot of people. So we've got a little bit of that for you today. Don't ever Google the word stool, just as a word to the wise. But this is the stool we're going to use today. Every great PowerPoint has a cheesy stool slide. So we want to make sure you do 4 things. We want to make sure every time you're working with your donor, especially if you're talking to them on the phone, you can sort of make a big checkbox that you've done a great call if you can do these 4 things. You want to thank the donor. That's obvious. You want to make sure they realize how much you appreciate the gift. You want to show them some sort of accountability. So it might be, you know, thank you so much for your gift of $29. We fed so many people. We want to show them vision. So then it goes, we want to thank you so much for your gift, Mrs. Smith. We really appreciate it. You know, we're really grateful in terms of, you know, your gift fed this many people. We know that because of the time we're in right now, that we're going to be feeding 20% more donors. That's what or 20% more people, I should say. That's where our working closely with people that are doing the programming piece is really key. You want to make sure you stay really close to them. So we've got the thank you, we've got accountability, and we've got vision for where you would use more money. Number 4 is probably one of the hardest for us as fundraisers. We want to tell, because I'm guilty of this, put my hand up, I'm the first to be guilty of this. We want to tell people so much about our organization that sometimes the donor doesn't feel like they have anything to say. And one question I love asking donors is, what inspired your very first gift? And you get back incredible answers. You also could get back oh, I saw a thing came in the mail and I thought it'd be a great idea. You're going to get the whole breadth there, but it certainly is a great question to ask for sure. So let's talk about one of my other favorite subjects, which is stewardship. So in terms of stewardship, we think about different ways to steward people. We've got 26 ideas here for you. So a lot of people will sort of pick a piece of paper now and they'll sort of make letters of the alphabet and start writing these down, so you can absolutely do that. One great way is, of course, using your annual report as a stewardship tool. Great, exciting ways to do that, either by sending it to certain people or by including them, but definitely include your annual report. And of course, blogging about impact. So a blog is a great way to do that. We've seen lots of different ways. We've seen video blogging now, which is a vlog, if you will. We've seen lots of different ways to do this. So once again, really important to connect about the impact there for your organization. And then celebrate anniversaries. And I would also just argue celebrating, and I'll use this as a great opportunity to talk about the fills. The fills, as you know, the deadline's coming up June 5th to nominate people in a number of different categories. There's a brand new category this year, and so there should be, that's about the emergency relief we're seeing right now for COVID. It's a great opportunity to nominate somebody. So celebrate those opportunities, but you can also celebrate anniversaries such as giving for 10 years. It's great to reach out to a donor and share that they've been giving for 10 years, and usually they're surprised, which is kind of fun. So. And then, of course, your donor profile. And many people don't think about this as a stewardship activity. But if you've spelt someone's name wrong, you're starting at ground zero. So make sure your donor profiles is your very first lens for any stewardship. Because once you get that right, then you can continue, and really encourage you as well, especially with maybe a change in a marital situation, or a new husband or a new wife. All of those things, keeping that donor profile fresh is a very first step of any fundraising strategy and any stewardship strategy. And of course, having an event stewardship plan is a really important piece as well. Many people sort of put on the gala or the run or the walk or the golf tournament without a stewardship plan. And of course, when we've got events like they are now, we can still do this for our virtual events, is have a stewardship plan, have your board members, have your team reach out and thank people and really include them into your stewardship plan. A first-time donor thank you call, I can't say enough about this. That welcome call is just so fundamental. Many people say they're doing it, but donors tell us they don't receive a lot of them. So, if you do that, you will stand out, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And quite honestly, it was one of the best things I did, especially when I worked at the mission. I loved doing them there. It was really great to reach out to donors. And of course, that gratitude report is a great opportunity as well. And including that gratitude report with your monthly donor consolidated receipts is a great opportunity too. And we spoke about those handwritten notes. It doesn't take a lot of time, but certainly very valuable, and to the donors, they love those, especially if you can personalize them with their name. And impact storytelling. We can tell lots of different stories, but making sure they're impactful, they're emotional. This is where we can really, really shine in terms of our organizations. And there's some great examples of storytelling out there, and even taking some time to look at what others are doing. It's a great time to do that right now. And making sure your thank you is joy-filled. I can't tell you how often I'm still seeing, on behalf of the board of directors and our executive director, we wish to thank you. If your letter looks or feels like it was written in 1992, definitely step it up. Do something great and be like, you're awesome, you're incredible, you're a donor, you're our hero. Use really fantastic language and make that thank you bounce off the page to the donor and make them feel like they are the only donor in the world. Really important to do that. And volunteers. So often we think about volunteers as people that aren't giving, when the reality is many of them are very, very loyal donors. So we want to give those kudos to volunteers, especially now many of them are missing their volunteer posts. It would be a great opportunity. Maybe bring them all together if you can on a Zoom call, give them kudos, make a special day for them. So many opportunities. I could do a whole hour on that. It's a great opportunity to give kudos right now to volunteers. And show that legacy giving love, whether that's notes or keeping them up to date, reaching out to them during this time, just checking in with them, not asking them for anything, just checking in. And there's lots of monthly giving love as well. It's a great opportunity to especially engage with monthly donors, reaching out to them, connecting with them, maybe sharing what you're doing, maybe the plans you've got right now for your organization, and sharing that, giving them sort of that inside scoop. Donors love that piece as well. Your newsletter, and for those doing a newsletter, I hope you have an appeal in there. So often people think, oh, I'm not going to include an appeal in the newsletter. It is the best venue for you to do an appeal. So don't be shy about that. Your donors are there for a reason. They're a donor for a reason, meaning that they've made an investment of their hard-earned money into your mission. So make sure that you ask them in your newsletter, but it can be a great stewardship opportunity as well. And organize an appreciation event. Of course, we have to put this on hold right now, but we can do a virtual one, as we mentioned. We can come up with thousands of great ideas for that. We can see some really great examples happening in the community for that too. Phone to thank your donors. This is aside from that first time donor. This would be a fabulous time, maybe taking a Friday afternoon and saying, I'm going to call 20 donors on a Friday afternoon and do thank you calls. It's a great way to reach out to them, and you can leave voicemails for them. Many people ask me that question. You can leave voicemails and thank them for their giving for sure. And of course, that quick response to complaints. Many of us get a complaint from a donor and we don't know how to respond. We're so nervous about responding. But one of the things that I've said to many, many donors that have called to complain over the years is, you value our work. You picked up the phone, you have a complaint, let's talk about it. And there have been, I can't even tell you, my colleagues at the mission used to get a kick out of the fact that sometimes I would get off a complaint call with a gift, because the donor then realized why we were doing our newsletter in a certain way, or why we had to mail out so many times. We would just be honest with them. So be quick with your responses for sure. And refresh that online gift response. I have given probably a half a dozen gifts in the last 11 weeks. And the online response is similar to that. On behalf of our board of directors, there's sort of these canned thank yous. Refresh that online gift response. A really, really simple thing to do, but can make a big impact for sure. It doesn't sound so computer, generated. We want it to sound like a person, because there's a person behind your mission. Surveying your donors. I can't say enough about surveying them. This is once again a very important time to do this, reaching out to them, having a survey, finding out how they're feeling about the work that you're doing. It's a great time to do this. And when it's safe to do so, obviously do those tours. If you're so equipped, you can maybe do a bit of a tour. Let's say you're working, somewhere like the food bank, for instance. You could do a little virtual tour. 5 minutes in the life of someone working at the food bank right now would be a great video to send to your donors, or post on your social media as well. And understanding your donors' motivation. So more listing from fundraisers. It's a really hard thing to do, because I love to talk, as you know, but when I know that a donor wants to listen, I really try to take that in. That is really the sweet spot of fundraising for sure. And then, of course, as we spoke about, those video opportunities, those opportunities for us to basically connect with donors. We were talking about that way, you know, that way to connect with them through video, like the food bank example I gave you, or another example. So this is a great way to use that as well. A welcome package. This is, can't say enough about this, super simple thing to do, but once again, impactful. And I bet you were wondering what I was going to do for X. This is donor love, of course, always looking through that donor lens. I often can hear Tom Ahern in my, you know, in my ear when I'm doing a letter to a donor, because he wants to see, and we all do want to see, the word you, meaning reflective of the donor. You did this, you can change a life. So he always suggests that you circle all the yous, and if your page looks like it has the measles, you're doing it right. If you have a lot of we's and us's there, it's too inward looking and not making the hero of the story the donor. So really important piece there as well. And then, of course, there's the you we talked about, really making sure that the donor is seen as the hero. And we want zealous accountability. This is where we are proud to tell our donor what we're doing with the money, what we've accomplished with their money, what they have done with their gift. So being very open with that, transparent, whether it be your audited financial statements or whether you're sharing that in your newsletter, but show them what you've done with the money. Show them how they've changed a life. And you might be feeding 1,200 people, but show them what you did with one person, how you changed their life. This is a really important piece too. A lot of people miss this, and I'm happy to share this because this is one of the things I love doing so much when I was a frontline fundraiser, was treating white mail with white gloves. So many people use different terms for this, but basically white mail is anything that comes in the mail that someone has written themselves. They've put it in an envelope, they've written a check, they found their own stamp. This isn't necessarily an appeal that has been made, that you've made. This is them reaching out to you. You might be sending them stuff, but this is typically this is elderly women that write this way to you. I love writing them back this way. And a lot of times what happens with white mail, it ends up in somebody's, usually the database person who I adore, but usually ends up in a file there, and people aren't seeing the value of this white mail and really seeing that that's a connection that the donor is trying to make with you, and sending them back something. And of course you have to send them back their tax receipt and all the regular things, but going an extra mile with these donors is really, really important for sure. And then we talk about, of course, monthly donors. This is a great opportunity to see how much they do love you, that credit card renewal, that consolidated receipt, those newsletters, gratitude reports, etc. Very important. And you want to know, of course, what the next step is. And this is that second gift conversion, that donor attrition, the long-term donor value. These are all of the different metrics that you want to measure as next steps. And you can do all of this, all of what you saw in my report, you can do as well. You know, really important to remember that you have data integrity. This is, you know, appeal coding, of course, making it super easy, making sure your data is regularly cleaned. That no garbage in rule. We have, you know, sort of in data, we hear that no garbage in, no garbage out. Let's put no garbage in. Marking those deceased donors, there's a lot of different files I've been in where you see the donor has passed away in the notes section, but that little checkbox isn't checked. So, and you want to make sure you limit access. Not everybody needs to have full access to the database. Data royalty, I can't say enough about the data people that work, either maybe somebody that's entering data, maybe it's somebody that is a data coordinator and doing this all day. I bow down to you. I think you do incredible work, and really suggest anybody working with them directly walk a day in their shoes and see what is like to do that work. I think you will understand that more. So really treating data people and bringing them to the table for bigger discussions as well. Storytelling, of course, is the sweet spot of fundraising. We could do a whole hour on this, but just to kind of give you a bit of a summary, if we have that clear case for support and really include strong data, that segmentation of donors, as we talked about, how to segment them, and we add that emotional storytelling, what do we come up with? We get donor-centric fundraising, which is really, really important, especially in these days. Perfect is the enemy of the good. I always have this included in my talks, because I think it's really important to know, try to do some of this. And this might have felt very overwhelming for you. You don't know where to start. Try one metric. If you're not a metric person, just try pulling one or two things. Try doing something, and we don't have to be, it's not about being perfect. It's about, doing something and getting it done and trying to move that forward. So we do have a free download for you. You can visit, we call this R&D, which most people think about as research and development. We like to call it rob and duplicate. So we do encourage you to visit our website. You can download the sample. Everything you saw plus. There are, I think, 27 different ways to look at your data. So definitely encourage you to visit there, download the sample, and you can use that sample and recreate it for your own organization. And now we have some time for questions. Ruby, does somebody have questions for me? There she is.
Oh, sorry. There is a question. Do you have specific suggestions on how to convert special event donors into annual donors?
That's a very good question. It is really, really hard to do that. Finding out why the donor really gave in the beginning is a really important piece. So making that connection with them would be a great way. I will tell you, this is a very difficult thing to do, to transfer the donors into philanthropic donors. It has been done, but it can be a challenging one for sure. But reaching out to them and finding out what their motivation was to get involved would be a good first start. Is there another question?
They say thank you. There is another question here. Do you have a preferred donor management software for reporting?
Yes. So I just wrote an article for Advancing Philanthropy, which will be coming out in July. And I talked about a lot about this because, there's so many different database options. So we've got everything from, we sort of think about Razor's Edge as the Cadillac, and then we have a lot of versions that would maybe be the Chevy version, and then there's lots of sedans and everything in between. So it really depends on your organization, and there are good and bad about all of them. A couple to keep in mind, especially from a Canadian perspective, one that I've started to work with is Keela, Keela. And that is I think it's a Swahili word for everyone, because they built this software really trying to include all organizations, big and small. So that would be one I would look at. I work a lot with Sumac. I work a lot with Bloomerang. Of course, Razor's Edge. I would say probably 65% of our clients work with Razor's Edge. There's Donor Perfect in there. But in terms of what's right for your organization, it's almost like asking what kind of car is right for you, right? You need to know how big your family is. You need to know what you're going to be transporting. You need to know what you want to get out of that car. Do you want to move in a certain direction? So I'm happy to take it offline and have a conversation with somebody, whoever that is. If they want to reach out to me, I'm happy to do that. But it really is such an individual choice.
Great, thank you. We have one final question here. Is there a virtual event software that you can recommend that provides great data back to the organizer after, so you can follow up with appeals, etc.?
Yeah, so I was actually sharing with everybody earlier, Teresa, Lynn, and Ruby, that I had, and Barbara, of course, I did an event, and I'm trying to think of when that was, doesn't matter, but it was using On24 as the software. and they had some great tools there. And I don't know it specifically as well as I should, but I would use that software, and then they were actually able to send me some metrics. So it's a great one to start with. But I think we're going to see more of those coming our way as well, onto the scene, especially with knowing that there's going to be such a big drive for that kind of thing as well.
Great, thank you. So those are all the questions currently. So I'll pass it over to Teresa.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ruby. Thank you so much, Sam. This was awesome and so much valuable information. And I'm really happy we got to see the slides because there's so much good content here. I want to just let folks know that the presentation will be available through AFP Ottawa channels on social media and on our website at afpottawa.ca. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you everyone so much for joining. Thank you to Lynn from Harvey McKinnon Associates for joining us at a very early hour because you're in British Columbia. I don't know if we said that at the outset, but thanks to everyone for joining. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch very soon. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.